In today's video, we're going to be talking about why I absolutely hate LinkedIn and how to mathematically tackle the problem of does God exist? If you came across this picture on the internet, what would your reaction be? Like basically, if you saw a product that said pre-cracked egg, no messy hands, what would your conclusion be? Mm, I think it was a pretty fucking dumb idea. And I think most of us would leave with that feeling. But the problem is, if you take that thought a step further and you decide to post it on LinkedIn, that's when it might become slightly problematic. I was scrolling on LinkedIn and I saw that someone had written a post about that image. This is a classic example of strategy du jour. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Strategy du jour. And if you build, they will come strategic blunders. Strategy du jour comes into play when an executive overreacts to a single data point, ignoring others, and takes the whole organization into a new, mostly incorrect direction. Blah, 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 blah. The problem is on LinkedIn, people often take the most mundane things. It might be something they observed at a supermarket, it might be an interaction with their Uber driver. Oh, this is a whole genre on LinkedIn. Yeah, and people extrapolate, they try to make business school case studies out of really small things, whereas in fact what they are talking about might not be that deep. There is no insight to gain. I don't mean to demean people who put up their opinions or thoughts on LinkedIn, but very often there really isn't anything to dive into in terms of insights or understanding. And whenever someone puts up a post like this, obviously they get reactions. uh, so I'll tell you what I did, and in general, what my approach to things is. If I see an image like this, I will go through each and every aspect of it. And if you see in the bottom right corner, I saw this term obvious plant. So I just decided to Google whatever it is that you're trying to learn more about. Yeah. So I saw this page. Are these products real or fake? And that's when I realized that they're all part of hilarious plants by the genius of Jeff Wysocki, aka Obvious Plant. So what he'd do is he'd make outlandish, weird products. He'd go to supermarkets and department stores and leave these weird toys there, sort of like a prank, just to see what reactions he'd provoke from people. So, for instance, this I found really funny. So there's a USA doctor kit, and it includes a stethoscope and a bill for $98,000. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is just a simple Google search, and you would have found out that uh, there's nobody actually making pre-cracked eggs and selling them in supermarkets, because it does seem extremely outlandish. In general, what I'd say is that in life, it helps to question everything. Everything you come across, like just do a Google search, whether it's a news article, whether it's someone offering some sort of investment scheme that seems too good to be true. And in general, if something is too good to be true, like it probably is, don't fall into that shit. When you start questioning things, it helps to have certain rules of thumb in mind. And one rule of thumb that I find particularly endearing is Occam's razor. Occam's razor says that if you're trying to explain anything, very often the simplest solution, or the solution which involves the least number of assumptions, is often the best one. So when you're given either a complex solution in which you have to assume a lot of things, and on the other hand you're given a very simple solution which involves just one or two base assumptions, it's probably the simple solution that is going to be the correct answer. I'll give you an example of this. So suppose you're in your house, you're just chilling, and suddenly you hear the sound of hooves. What would be your first thought? Now most people would say a horse, although a zebra would also make exactly the same noise, probably, I don't know. But for you to hear a zebra, that would involve a zebra being somewhere near your house. Zebras don't exist in the wild in India, so them being here in itself would be something pretty outlandish. But the problem is, Occam's razor is just a rule of thumb. It doesn't mean that it is always a good idea to go by Occam's razor. So just an example to prove where you could go wrong. So on one hand, you have the Big Bang Theory, saying that that's how the universe started, and that was how everything came to be. And on the other hand, you have the much simpler explanation, which is God created it. But when you delve into it, that is the more complex one, and it throws up more questions. Where did God come from? Who created God? Occam's razor is just a rule of thumb. It is not something that should be your Bible. I want to take you through this interesting thought experiment that Blaise Pascal came up with. Instead of asking the question of whether God exists, he tried to answer the question in a different way. Does it make sense for you to believe in God? And how he did that is by doing a cost benefit analysis. What is the effort that it takes for you to believe in God? And on the other hand, what is the benefit or what you would get? This is a 2x2 matrix. Once you do your MBA, somehow you'll develop a thing for these matrices and you'll try to incorporate them in every fucking slideshow that you make. So yeah, I found this image online. There are two possibilities. Either God exists or God does not exist. And on the other hand, for you, there are two stands to take. Either you believe in God or you do not believe in God. Now, if you believe in God and God exists, you get eternal happiness. If you don't believe and God exists, I don't know, he's very vindictive, you're going to hell, and there's going to be eternal misery for you. And if God does not exist, it doesn't make any difference whether you believe in God or do not believe in God. So there's a very mathematical way of considering such problems. I'll explain using an example, as I always do. So let's consider you're asking yourself, should you buy a lottery ticket? Now, for you to decide conclusively, you need to know two things. What is the size of the prize, whether you're going to get 1 lakh, 1 crore, 1 million, whatever. And on the other hand, you need to know what is your probability of winning it. If it's a fair lottery, your probability of winning it is the number of tickets you buy versus the number of tickets sold in totality. So if there are 100 tickets and you buy one ticket, your probability of winning is 1 by 100. So suppose there is a hypothetical lottery in which there's a prize of $1 million and your probability of winning it is 1 in 10,000. So there are 10,000 tickets and you buy one ticket. How do we calculate the expected payoff of buying a lottery ticket? So the expected payoff is the probability of winning into the prize that you get for winning. And the second part of the payoff is the payoff when you don't win. So in 9,999 times out of 10,000, you would not win anything. So the payoff in that case is zero. So you add both of these expected payoffs to get your total expected payoff of buying a lottery ticket, and it is $100. What that tells you is that you can pay up to $100 for buying a ticket. So if someone sells you a ticket at $10, you should fucking take it because your expected payoff is 100 and you have a lot to gain. So this is just a mathematical way of approaching this problem. Now let's take this and apply it to the thought experiment that Pascal did. It is called Pascal's wager, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier. So when you're asking the question of should you believe in God or not, if God exists, no matter how small the probability of that is, so let's say the probability of God existing is 1%. Although the probability is 1%, your expected payoff, if God exists, because you've been faithful, you've been praying regularly, you've been going to church, you've been doing all that sort of shit, God is really happy with you, he takes you to heaven. So the expected prize, if God exists, is infinity. Like you can't quantify heaven. So 1% into infinity. And if God does not exist, which is much more probable, uska likelihood hai 99%, you will get nothing. So 1% into infinity is again infinity. So long story short, what Pascal says is mathematically, it probably does make sense to believe in God, because no matter how small the probability of that actually being true is, because the prize that is in store for you is infinity, you should fucking go for it. Now, the problem with Pascal's wager is that Pascal has only considered two possibilities: either God exists or God does not exist. Pascal has only considered the Abrahamic God, which Jews, Christians, and Muslims look up to. But in fact, there are a lot of other scenarios. Like one of the Hindu gods is the one that actually exists, or it could be the flying spaghetti monster, or like I said before, it could be like Jesus Christ himself, or maybe it could even be Jesus. So yeah, until and unless you consider the like expected payoff in each one of these scenarios, and that would involve deciding whether Kanye was more powerful than Jesus. Like is Kanye able to give you a bigger infinity, a better version of heaven than Jesus? So yeah, it just becomes too complicated, and yeah, that's when should probably stop with this thought experiment and do better things in life. If you would like to continue listening to stuff like this, a lot of logic, a lot of examples, a lot of interesting concepts that I come across, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I'll keep coming out with more videos whenever I come across something interesting or I feel like talking about something. So yeah.